Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Friday Forum. In this session, we're going to be looking at understanding, specifying, and designing with fabric walls from Surround Group. So, fabric walls is our solution for doing interior fit outs. Now, the very special thing about fabric walls is that we have designed it to be as easy as possible for people to use. It's based on a metal track system. And when we talk about fabric walls, we're almost always talking about the metal track system. The metal track brings a lot of advantages, and we're going to discuss that as part of the session today. Okay, so fabric walls can be used in lots of different situations. And we've had lots of very interesting discussions about podcast recording studios, um, wellness suites, office fit outs, all of those types of things. Today, though, we're really focusing on how system integrators, AV system integrators, can use fabric walls as part of their cinema projects. So really a very specific use case of the solution. Now, just to give a little bit of background, um, myself and Simon, so the SR and ND in Surround Group, have been working on cinemas, I think, for 20 years each now. Um, we've always been involved with fabric and fit out and design. And people probably don't know, but many, many years ago, Simon actually had his own cinema interior fit out company. Way before that was a cool thing to do, we did it. We've sold stretch ceilings and we've done pretty much everything. So I feel that we have served a very strong apprenticeship to be able to talk to people about how to do fabric wall systems. And really, everything that we've learned, good, bad, we've tried to put into the fabric walls system. So it's not just, a couple of blokes randomly made up an idea. We have a lot of experience doing these things, and we have tried to apply that to a system that works for you as AV integrators. Okay. Now, what does that mean in the context of the market? Now, I had a very interesting conversation this week with one of our integrators in the UK who was previously a business analyst. And it was one of the easiest sales pitches I've ever had to make in terms of the benefits of the system. So let's look at how a cinema interior currently works, right? Let's call it the first and traditional option is you as the AV integrator take full responsibility for every element of that cinema interior. The design, the um, the sales to the customer, let's not forget that. The very, very important part of fitting it, and probably will do that using a traditional plastic fabric track and tuck tool system. Now, when you're doing that type of approach, what you're going to get paid for is you're going to get paid for labor. The fabric track and the fabric themselves are not high margin items because you know what, they're just what they are. They're not high margin items. Um, and if you look at your opportunity cost of that, it can be quite limiting because you might be spending a week, 10 days on site at the end of the project doing a fabric fit out, when you could be on another project where you're installing 10 amplifiers or new audio processing or whatever else it is that would be much more financially interesting to your business than the pure labor cost that you are able to invoice in the same amount of time. Now, if you are a smaller company, 1, 2, 3 people, that can be a perfectly interesting and valid approach because you're getting paid for your time. And unless your projects are ramming against each other, that's a good thing. So we understand that that can be a perfectly good and valid approach for a lot of companies. But as soon as you realize the opportunity cost and you start butting up against it, you start to look at other options. And what tends to happen is that people go completely in the opposite direction, and they'll look at how either they can just not be involved in the interior at all, which always then leads to problems with the technical aspect of things, or they look to see how they can contract that out. There are two or three companies in the UK, but in America, everywhere, who do nothing but cinema interiors for people. And the pitch is, don't worry, we'll take this whole project over. You don't need to think about it. You'll get a little bit of a commission in the background. Um, I say a little bit, of course, interesting money to be earned in the background, and it's no longer your problem. But honestly, you're giving away quite a lot of margin potential by doing that, and your whole project, all of a sudden, and your client is in the hands of a third party, and that cannot always be an ideal situation either. So what we wanted to try and do with fabric walls is come up with kind of like a middle ground on this whole thing. Fabric walls is designed to help you in the sales process get to a decision as quickly as possible. Then on the other side of things, when it comes to install, it's designed to be very simple and very, very fast to install. Therefore, you can maximize your margin whilst also retaining control over the whole project, and your opportunity cost compresses way down. You're protected through the whole process when you do it with fabric walls. Okay. Um, so that's what we've tried to do to position fabric walls is really a solution that works for our AV integration partners. Okay. Now, um, does anyone have any questions on that part? It's quite an important part to understand where the solution fits in the whole chain. It's really designed so that you can manage the whole process as we go through that. Okay, good. So let's look then. What is the sort of the big advantage then? What makes it so easy for you to take that middle way for your company? So the first thing is it's easy. Okay. I'll use my business analyst again as an example. I asked him, how much time do you allocate in your project planning for your engineers to fit a TV on a flat wall bracket? And he worked it out, and it was like a couple of hours or something like that. I said, okay, you will actually fit a fabric walls panel faster than you will fit that TV. And he was amazed when I said this to him. But then I explained how the process works, and we'll have a look at that later on in this little session. And he could see indeed that if his engineers could fit a flat wall bracket to the wall, they could also fit a fabric wall system. And probably to fit a large fabric walls panel was a little bit quicker because there was no complexity with cables or anything like that in the main. But even if it was, he could see, yes, that's not going to eat up days or weeks of site time. It's going to be a profitable operation, and it's going to be easy enough for our team to do that with confidence that they're not going to make horrible mistakes through the whole process. And his engineers are not going to quit on him because he's asked them to cut little bits of fabric track and all of those types of things. So fabric walls is very, very easy technically. It should also be relatively easy on the sales side. Now that every customer's different, I can't promise you this. But what does that mean? Um, Have you ever had a miracle happen where you have sold a complete cinema to a customer? To me, it's almost a miracle when this happens, that we sell a complete cinema system. Um, Sales is so difficult. So people who are good at it, I salute you. Then comes that incredible moment when you say to the client, "Well, what would you like in your cinema?" And they say, "I don't know. What can I get? What can I get?" The dreaded words. How do you answer that question? Uh, do you open up Google Images, look at these cinemas? You know, that's what used to happen in America. And we always used to laugh about brown cinemas in America. It's because people didn't know what to do. So they went on Google Images, saw a brown cinema, and said, well, doesn't look like any other part of my entire beautiful house, but I guess that's what cinemas must look like. So I'll take it. Thankfully, cinema design improved, but your average client that you're going to be selling to, it's not like they are an expert in cinema. Um, Not in the way that they might be an expert in a kitchen, for example, or a bathroom, where they understand, you know, the cabinets that they buy could be from IKEA, they could be bespoke, custom made, still a cabinet, but they understand the choice, the materials, the way it's going to look carries a value to them. Now, for the longest time, and I really mean this, I can go back to 2011, 2010 and look at my notes and first visualizations and materials about all of this thing. I felt that the client needed some inspiration, but the inspiration needed to be sensible, constrained, if I can say that. And I hope everyone else has got a copy while they're listening to me as well. So, why does it need to be sensible and constrained? Because you're going to have to build it. They say, I like that one and I'll take it. You're going to have to build it. So, if you show them the one that's got impossible geometric stuff all through it, it's going to be your fault. You're going to have to deliver that. And that does happen, you know. People get sold things off of visualization, especially with AI and all of that type of stuff. That's just impossible to build. Um, I think you've also got to be somewhat aware of the value association for the client. So all of your fancy, processors, amplifiers, cables, maybe even the speaker, client doesn't really care in most cases about those things because what they are buying is the experience. And if you're good at selling, that's what you've sold them. The experience will be unbelievable, will be incredible. You will enjoy it. The bit that they see is the cinema interior, and the bit that they touch is the seats, to be honest with you. That's why seats are always so important. We're not going to touch on seats today, though. They're a nightmare. So the sooner that you can get them to buy into a concept, all the rest of your sales process will become a lot easier as well. In my opinion, you're almost better to get them to buy into the visual concept before you talk any technical stuff. Because once they've kind of agreed a rough budget for what it's going to look like, well, then you know where they're going to be technical wise as well. So it's easy because what we have done is we have created preset designs, okay, systems. Now, we don't expect your client to look at the system concepts that we have come up with and say, I want that one. Wouldn't that be easy? It would be fantastic. But it doesn't happen that way. What they can do though is they can look at a curated set of cinema designs and say, I like that one. I like that column. I don't like the way that those lights are. You can narrow down and get their taste and very quickly get an idea of what is going to work for them. And we recognize that very, very quickly in the whole process about how you build a system. And that's going to be the next topic that we cover. Now, once you've got your client buy-in, the next thing is the actual process for you needs to be very, very fast. You can look at these things, you can put in the dimensions, and you can buy them right on the Surround store. There's a configurator that does it. People are always amazed when they do that and they get the price. You know what? It's because we also want it to be fast. We don't have time to work out £500 difference if you go for, that column or that column. In the end, it's all much the same. Our labor is the same, all of those types of things. So we've recognized in the process, you win some, you lose some, but you've got to make it quick and easy for people. So we've done that as part of the sort of buying process. Ben, who's in this room at this minute in time, our lead visualizer, Ben will then work with you to do the visualizations and all the customization specifically for your customer's room. Because again, we're pretty sure it's not going to be the exact size and fabrics and colors that we happen to have used. So that's included in the whole process, so that you can get through and get that client sign off as quickly as possible. The stuff is then made in our factory. So our factory in Yorkshire that we're finally starting to get a lot of integrators through, it's a real factory. We still get a lot of surprise from people when they draw up and they see that we actually have 4 separate production units where things are being made. I don't know. I'm in my shed here, guys. I cannot make these things, which bizarrely seems to be what people think. We have a real place with lots of very cool machinery where we make these things for you. So that when they arrive, you get 2 benefits, right? It's all pre-made. All the fabric is pre-cut. The lights are fitted if you've ordered it with lighting. Everything is ready to go so that you screw it to the wall with the brackets. Simple as that. So what that means is it's a fast installation. That's why we can be so confident that you're not going to lose much time in the installation of the system. But it's also a very safe system for you. You're not cutting fabric on site. You're not trimming tracks on site. If someone falls over or just makes a little mistake with the scissors when they're trimming the fabric, it happens all the time. You know what? Maybe you have to buy a whole new roll of fabric to replace that. Maybe you've got to wait 3 weeks, which would probably be much worse, until a new roll of fabric can get shipped to the site. Whatever it is, we've removed all of that risk. So it's easy through the whole process. It's very fast through the whole process. And it should also be very safe for you as the integrator in this process, because there's not really much that can go wrong, because it all comes out of our factory and we take basically the responsibility to make sure it's going to fit into your project. Okay, so anyone got any questions at that point before we move on? All still following along so far? My llamas are not leaping around on the screen in front of me, so I guess everyone's listening. So let's take a look at this process, okay? Share my screen. So this is the fabric wall section of the Surround store. So you guys are welcome to go and visit this at any time. Now, on here is a video that very clearly explains the whole end-to-end process of a fabric walls system on site. It runs in about 5 minutes. Okay, I'm not going to go through that today. I already have enough that I want to say to you without going through the video. So please go and look at that on the website. Now, what we spoke about just a minute ago, is we've made up systems. And what Simon and I recognized a long time ago is that really these systems, these rooms that you come up with, are made up of really just a couple of different things. The first thing that you've got are the fabric panels, so aluminium fabric frames. We've had an earlier one of these sessions where we spoke about fabric frames and how to make very simple fabric wall systems. Yeah, just fabric frames. Don't know what else to say. You can have them in different shapes and different styles and all of that type of stuff. So that's one part of the system. The second part of it is what we call elements. So let me just move this into place. So this is a typical fabric walls demo wall. Okay. If you're interested to put fabric walls on demo in your facility, of course it's cool to do a cinema, but this is the bit that helps you sell, is the fabric walls elements wall. So what have we got here? So once again, we've got our fabric panels. You can see how these fabric panels are neatly done along the wall. But then these other details are the elements that go together to make up a fabric walls system. So what you have here is an outside column. You have an LED joining strip. You have a recessed column. And then you have these wood slat details with LED integrated into them. We've actually done an amazingly cool cinema with a company in Denver called QAV that uses these columns here. You can see the way that the ends are. The ends can be RAL coloured, all sorts of different things. The reason the TV's there is the TV lets you have the cinema demo items as well as showing how you would do a media room installation around the TV. So a relatively small number of additional things to the fabric panels allows you to create a very, very wide palette of system designs. Now, if we look at this recessed column, so this is one of my favorites, the recessed column. Just think to yourself for a second, what can I do with a recessed column? Well, one, you can have it in any wood finish that you want to do. But we also use a lot of architectural wraps, so very, very high-end architectural wraps made for the Japanese market, where they have a lot of concrete construction, but they want to have much better material feel. Honestly, if you want a metallized finish or you want to have stone type finishes or whatever else they are, we can wrap these columns. Of course, if you want to have real metal or real stone, we can do that as well, but typically that's not needed for the cinema. So you can do almost an unlimited range of finishes on top of this column. Same with this one. If any of you have ever been to Barco, the Barco residential demo pod has that column inside it with that architectural wrap applied to it. Now, whether that's pure chance or not, I don't know, but that's what's in there. A fairly good example of a fabric walls system. So these elements, plus the fabric panels, combine together and they allow us to make what you will find down here, these fabric walls cinemas. So let's go over into here. So currently we have 10 on the website, if I remember correctly. 3, 6, 8, 11, 12. There you go. We've added a couple. So what you can do is you can use these as inspiration. Now let me just pick Busan here. So Busan would be a fairly typical fabric walls system And what you have on the website is you have these images that you can see of different finishes. So what is Busan? It's a fabric panel, rectangle fabric panel, nothing fancy, a metal trim piece, and then an LED. Okay. So we've combined the fabric panels with a couple of elements to make up this design. Now that's important for you to understand because if you got a rough idea of the elements and the options on the fabric panels, you very, very quickly see that your palette is huge. But what you need to do is kind of understand, does the client like this sort of clean look? Do they prefer an Art Deco look like this one here, the New York cinema, which is absolutely stunning, by the way, this room. Maybe they prefer something with fins, the old classic fin cinema that you've got here with the LEDs integrated into it. So lots and lots of different ways that you can take that same little palette of things and put them together to make a system. Now let me just go back to Busan. Busan. So I'm logged in, and this is going to show trade pricing. But once you're logged in, what you can do is you can just put in your room dimensions, 7, 5, 3. That's already given you a price, okay? You can decide which walls you want to use. Perhaps you're not doing a front wall. You can remove that. That will adjust the price automatically. Now, Busan, by definition, has a ceiling. On quite a lot of the designs, the ceiling is one that you can remove, or you can put a star ceiling or anything like that. You can configure how many LED stripes you want to have down the side. We can do lots of different lighting. This all updates in real time, however you want to do that. Okay. So it's very, very straightforward to do those things. Now, when I was looking, I realized that we don't have specification and drawings online for that. But actually, of course, those things do exist. Now, of course, it might be a bit awkward for you to go in front of your client with uh, with this tool open. If you're not logged in, you only see the room images so that you can get your inspiration and that type of stuff. But we have a complete book of all of these designs, and we also have these PDFs of all of the designs. So Busan, we have PDFs, we have videos, we have all the marketing materials that you want to have to go along with that. You have lots of different styles. Busan room, there's a red one. Ben can change all of that stuff for you, seemingly by magic. Ben. Now, one of the other things that I like very much is that we have these little drawings here as well that kind of give you a feel for how these rooms kind of go together. Now, this is also fairly typical of the drawings that you would be supplied with as part of the process. So when the panel ships to the site, each panel has an ID on it. L1 to 5, for example, it could be in this one. So you can look at your drawings, the ID, pick up the physical panel, and know exactly where that needs to go to put the system together. You can see all of that stuff there. Very, 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 very straightforward process. Let me stop the share there. So that just gave you a little taste of how the elements combine with the fabric panels to make a system. And I hope that you could immediately see what you see on the website as inspiration, and you can use it to price very accurately. Um, but that shouldn't limit your creativity, but it keeps it constrained within known boundaries. If a client says, "Look, I want a white one or a blue one or a pink one," perfect. There's no problem. We can do all of that stuff. It's dead easy. You don't need to worry about that as such. And all of the fabric choices and all of those types of things have all been handled for you. Okay. So um, that really gives you a pretty good idea of the sort of experience that you'll have with the fabric walls system in terms of uh, like the parts that go into that system. Now, um, then we look at how would the sort of sales process work for your business. So let me go back to the website. Okay, so what our ideal sales process looks like is that you take the materials that we have, and I hope you've seen that we have a lot of materials. And incidentally, I think there must be 25 of these cinemas that are not on the website. So we do also have quite some creative ideas in all of these things. Use that with your client as early as possible in the whole process to understand their visual goals for the cinema. Now, I already said we don't expect the client to look at this and go, "Oh, Vancouver, I've got to have that." Would be nice. Doesn't really happen, except for Toronto. That one people do say that. Um, but what you can do is you can explain to them, like, here is a very plain, super nice design that we just got an order for this morning for a Seattle system. Okay, really nice, clean, nicely lit. It has detail on the ceiling, super nice cinema, very flexible to work with. It'll install in a day. That cinema, it couldn't be easier. A lot of people like that clean look. But then you have something much, much more complicated, like Paris. So the Paris design, we have it with all the golds and stuff like that. Um, Very luxurious feeling, quite detailed, lots of light involved, all of those types of things. Um, One of the things that's super nice is when you see Paris in a different color. We've done a couple of grey ones. It really changes the feel of the room, but still retains that sort of luxe feel. So these are styles that you can use with your client to get a feel for what they want to do. Now, hopefully, that gives us enough information that we can get a design deposit from you and from your client, obviously, so that Ben can get on and produce the visualizations of their own room for them to sign off. As soon as the room is signed off, we can move into production. We produce all of those production drawings like you saw earlier. Again, that can all be signed off. And yeah, then the stuff arrives on site 2-3 days later. The job is done. It's very, very, very straightforward. Now, if you do need additional help with all of those things, we do have enhanced interior design packages that we can help with as well. Just to help get through the process If the client is finding it difficult to decide what they would want to have, it takes time and it takes effort to create visualizations and all of those types of things. So you can just buy that service, and we can help you all the way through that whole process. Okay. Um, but that's really it. That's what we're looking at with the fabric walls system, is to make it as simple as possible. Um, if you've not seen it before, remember it's also very scalable. It goes from one rectangle metal panel all the way up to these complete rooms, like we have been talking about today. Okay. Now, there's a few other sort of technical topics that I can dive into. Um, does anyone have any questions or points of view or anything like that that we can answer at this minute in time about the complete systems approach with fabric walls? Or is everyone totally on board? I've explained every detail. Okay, looks like everyone is totally on board and that we have explained every detail. Um, so now if we start to look a little bit at the technical angle of all of these types of things. Um, the first thing is fabric choice. We have a range of fabrics which we have tested ourselves that we know work extremely well, both from a aesthetic point of view of being stretched and a technical point of view where we know that they are acoustically transparent to go in front of speakers. Familiar ones like Chimera, that you see all over the place, to much yeah, varied options. The most popular fabric that we have right now is called Ultra Suede. Everyone is looking for a suede finish on everything, it seems. Beautiful feel, all of those types of things. Now, Ultra Suede is a man-made material, but it is by far, like not even close, the fabric that actually has the real suede feel to it. However, because of the way it's made to breathe. There's a couple of the thinner ones that are actually suitable and really work well for cinema. Um, so we've done a lot of work with the guys at UltraSuede, fabulous people to work with, and that has proven exceptionally popular for cinemas, as UltraSuede fabric. Um, one of the other topics that we tend to get asked about is how can you integrate things like touch panels, um, even speakers into the fabric walls system. It's actually really simple. Wherever we need to put that sort of product, the metal frame can just have an accessory put in that's either a flat panel that we can go into for a control panel or sockets or anything like that. Or it can have speaker back boxes mounted onto it so that you can actually mount materials off of the frame. Um, just recently, one of our dealers in the US, a company called Boca Theatre, did a very cool project in a condominium building in the US. They call it the Little Square Theatre. And the Little Square Theatre is actually a completely freestanding cinema. That entire cinema was pre-built in our factory. All of the speaker back boxes were installed, all of the projector mounting, every single thing, detail of that cinema was all pre-built, packaged and shipped to Florida, where it was assembled on site. A very cool project, and they did some very nice videos and case studies, so you can keep an eye out for that as well. So freestanding, um, if you have customers who are in rented properties or listed buildings, or they're very complex architectural details that they don't necessarily want to get rid of, but need a way of working around, we can do that also. It's a pretty unique feature of the fabric walls system. So we've got that covered as well. So those are the sort of main technical points that I wanted to cover as well today. So that's the main parts of the session. Does anyone have any questions for me today? Nope. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming. I hope that you have enjoyed watching this little presentation. I hope it's helped you to understand just how easy it is to design and specify a fabric walls cinema system and how it can fit into your AV integration business. Okay, thanks a lot.